Well, nobody likes it. Nobody likes getting sick.
Nobody likes getting sick.
Seriously? Hello. If you know nothing about emetophobia, get used to the word. Consider yourself educated. Emeducated, if you will. I want to talk about the 5 things you should never say to someone with emetophobia. And in case you don't know what emetophobia is, it is the fear of, and for any emetophobics out there watching it, I'm going to say the V word right now, so you could just mute the sound for like 3 seconds. It is the fear of vomit. And the reason I put that warning out there is because for people who actually do have emetophobia, they can feel encouraged and feel like my videos are safe for them, and just know that they're not alone. And so saying the actual word that I just said, for certain emetophobics, depending on what degree you're afraid, some of us can't even say the word or hear the word. Throughout the video, instead of saying the actual V word or the T word, I'm going to use the term getting, the S word. So I'm going to use the term getting sick to refer to, y'all know what I'm talking about at this point, because that's actually the most comfortable word for me. I will talk about the 5 things you shouldn't say or ask your emetophobic friends or emetophobic people that you've met. So with emetophobia, it does affect 8% of the US. Last time I checked, emetophobia is unlike any fear, and they actually say it's it's a tricky fear. I don't want to say it's the worst because I don't want to compare like my fear to other people's. Like, fear is fear and it's anxiety inducing, but emetophobia is troublesome in that if you're afraid of dogs, then like don't go to your friend's house that has a dog. If you're afraid of heights, that's easy to avoid. With emetophobia, it's almost as if you're afraid of your own body, because you never know if I'm gonna get sick. Every person around is a threat at some point, because you're like, is that person gonna get sick? And there are certain places like amusement parks, movie theaters, daycares, schools, where there's a higher chance of someone getting sick. Even though it does rarely happen, like you do rarely see someone get sick in front of you, but for emetophobes, like, we happen to see it a lot more just because we're so sensitive to it. Without further ado, here are the 5 things you should never say or ask an emetophobe. So number 1, whenever I'm telling somebody about my emetophobia, the first question I literally 9 out of 10 times I'm going to get is, well, haven't you gotten sick? Obviously, I'm a human being. Babies get sick, like, we've all been through the stages. To be asked that question, it just is like, then I have to think about that time. With emetophobia, there's a lot of fear of jinxing ourselves. So when you ask that question, then I think, oh my gosh, because they asked it, what if it's gonna happen soon? If you meet someone with emetophobia, don't ask that question, because it's obvious that every single human being has experienced getting sick, but we don't like to think about that. Number 2, the most invalidating statement you can make to an emetophobe is, well, nobody likes it. Nobody likes getting sick. Seriously? We understand that. Nobody likes it. There's tons of things in this world that nobody likes. It's invalidating because, sorry, I was really sassy there. It's because I literally get so upset at that statement. It's invalidating because when it comes to emetophobia, that makes it all the worse. That already getting sick is something that no one likes, but for emetophobia, it's a fear to the point where some days I don't want to go outside. Some days I don't want to eat. Like, I say that I owe my body to emetophobia because there are times where I'm actually hungry, but I'm so afraid of all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, what if I get sick? That I don't eat. And so it's not about, oh, because nobody likes it. Like, y'all still eat. Y'all don't go to sleep fearing every night, what if tomorrow's the day? Because that's how constant it is. That's how much emetophobia can take over in a emetophobic's life. I don't think I can go an hour without thinking about something that involves my emetophobia. So of course nobody likes it, but don't say that to an emetophobe, because then it just shows how much you don't understand, like, the degree in which it's paralyzing. It's a paralyzing fear sometimes, and it really does rule my life sometimes. Number 3, if you know your friend has emetophobia, don't ask them to be a designated driver. Maybe some emetophobics out there who are stronger could handle it, but for me, I actually avoid being out past 9 p.m. When it comes to like drinking situations, because people can drink too much and they can get sick. And I know a lot of designated drivers have had to be that babysitter when someone is like has drinking so much to the point that they're getting sick. So designated driver and emetophobes just don't match. Number 4 is asking an emetophobe to share drinks or food is a very uncomfortable situation. So like, it's one thing if like you've washed your hands and you're gonna reach into my chip bag and like take a chip, but it's another thing to be like, oh, here, try this, and it's like your bitten ice cream sandwich and the only place for me to bite that's socially acceptable is where you've already bit. You know, like, no, I don't want your saliva. I don't know who you've kissed, if who you've kissed was sick recently, if your family's been sick. Yeah, sharing straws, sharing drinks, nope, just stay away from it. And like, you know, I've gotten a lot of flack from my family and friends for that. I think like when they don't understand, where it's like, oh, well, she's your cousin, why don't you want to share? And you know, it really sucks. Like, it sucks to not share with like my little baby cousins or my younger cousins, but that's how high the anxiety is. It's not about like how much I care about you or don't care about you. It's really about peace of mind for me at the end of the day, because I already am so troubled by this fear. I think other emetophobes can agree. Number 5 is the suggestion, well-intentioned suggestion of, well, why don't you just get sick? Why don't you make yourself sick, and then you'll get used to it and you won't be afraid of it. No, that's not how it works. And actually, funny story, there was actually a professor at a school that I went to that after me telling them about my fear, this particular professor was like, oh, well, you should have ayahuasca tea. And like literally, this person really thought that if I have ayahuasca tea, which every emetophobe I'm sure is familiar with, because it's a tea that it's hallucinogenic. First of all, it's hallucinogenic. Like, you're a professor, why are you telling me to have like a psychedelic, like drug infused tea? But it makes you get sick. And he thought that he was so brilliant in telling me to have ayahuasca tea, because then if I got sick, then maybe I would come to some realization of why I had the fear in the first place, and then it would just go away. Like, that's the opposite. That is the absolute opposite of what's going to help me with this fear. So yeah, don't tell your emetophobic friends or emetophobic people like, oh, get sick, it's gonna help you. Like, no, trust me, it's not. There are actually women who are emetophobic and they fear pregnancy because of morning sickness, and there are women that literally will not get pregnant because they're so afraid of morning sickness. And there are women who have gotten pregnant who have been emetophobic, and that made it worse because you can't control it. And that's what emetophobia is about. It's really about the lack of control. I mean, I feel like all of our problems, any human being problems, there's a portion of it that's due to lack of control, but with emetophobia, that's huge. So those are the 5 things. Those who care, make sure that you know that list like the back of your hands. If you run across an emetophobe, which is rare, but it happens, 8% people, 8%, then you'll know what not to say.